Hey, welcome to Dan's Model Works. And yes, something completely different. And I suppose completely different in that it's not the sort of model that a lot of people build, which I think is kind of unfortunate. And that's probably the subject of another rant for another day. But I, for one, like doing models of common, ordinary items. It's fine and dandy to have, I don't know how many versions of the Corvette available or how many versions of the Trans Am available. But quite frankly, when you figure that Caravans through all of its various generations, and this is a third generation Caravan, have amounted to over 11 million units, why is it we only have one model of the Caravan? So anyway, I actually own a Caravan currently, and it's actually the fourth generation, the ones with the horrid rust problems in the sills and the tailgates. This version wasn't quite as bad for rust, and this was built from 1996 through to about the 2000 model year, and it's of course, the squinty headlight variety. And as you can see, it was made by Lindberg. And for a while there, Lindberg was making more modern cars, more modern subjects. And whether or not that will continue into the round two ownership, I don't know, but I think it was certainly welcome. Now, as you can see, it's a super snap kit. It's snap together, and well, you know what? If I have to put together a snap together kit to get a very significant vehicle, which the Caravan is, then so be it. So we can take a look at the box, and it's not quite closing because I can never get everything back in the box again. Now, this is when it was an RPM company, so that's before ownership of round two, although I'm not sure where it fits in with the J. Lloyd company, whether it was before or after that ownership. And of course, that side's the same, pretty much the same picture all the way around. And let's take a look at what we got in the box. So, what we got here? I've already taken everything out of the bags. Now, I didn't even know this kit existed. I've actually had it in my stash for about 2 years now. And the funny thing is I had been at an actual hobby flea market earlier in the day, and I went to a local generic flea market, and I saw this on a vendor's tables, and I was like, what? Really? Are you serious? So let's take a look at these parts here. See what we got. Get everything out of the box. Now, if we start with the instructions, you can see we have actually got a copyright here of 1995. So pretty much Lindberg decided to build this kit right around the time that the actual car was being introduced. And of course, we got our legal warnings in many different languages. Please don't eat the parts. And it's not going to be an extremely complex assembly because it is a snap fit kit. And as you can see, it's a curbsider. We don't have any actual engine detail. And the window glazing all goes in at one piece. More about that in a minute. See, there's not a whole lot of difficulty here in the assembly. They do give you a sticker for the instrument panel, not a decal. And of course, the wheels just go on using metal axles. And then we've got some paint diagrams here. I suppose this is if you want to do it two-tone, and some of them were two-tone. So nothing too surprising there. Looking at the parts, the underside here, this is actually a fairly decent representation of the underside of the vehicle. We've got the underside of the engine right here. There's the oil pan, the transmission pan there, and a little bit of a simplified version of the front suspension. Now, there's no coil springs here, which is a little bit of a disappointment, but not the end of the world. And I suppose if you really wanted to peek in there and look and see, you could probably scratch build some or mold some. All the underbody detail is pretty much correct. I know, because I've crawled around these things. The leaf springs are pretty simple. And yes, Caravans have leaf springs, but the only problem with these is you can't really see the individual leaves. Mind you, on a real Caravan, I think there's only maybe 2 or 3 leaves to the leaf springs anyway. And of course, here's the spare tire. All things considered, I think it's a pretty good underframe. And we've got some of the seats. This looks like it's probably the middle seat given the how narrow it is. And here's another set of seats, and I guess that's the same width. Nope, that's the wider one. So this is the rearmost bench seat right here. And here's the roof rack. And this sprue here, we've got our front seats, the backs of the front seats. We've got the steering wheel and the mirrors, and this would be the steering column. And probably have some chrome inserts for those. Pretty good, really, all things considered, being a snap-together kit. This sprue has some wheel backs, much simplified. The dashboard is pretty good. I see very, very few problems or concerns with this at all. Certainly equal to what would have been offered in glue-together kits, just a few years ago. We've got the front and rear bumpers. They look pretty good. Then we have the bucket. And what's nice is there's no big ejector pin marks or anything in here. I think they put them all on the bottom, which is nice. Now, there's no actual tracks molded in the floor. You might want to put those in. Don't know. I think I'm probably not going to bother. But this looks good. Here is our stick errors. And this would be our instrument panel. The only one I would probably use is the instrument panel. I might use the Dodge logo there. But otherwise, I wouldn't bother with any of these other ones. Not much chrome on a Caravan. These are pretty much the backers for the... these are the backers for the headlights. And these are the mirror inserts. And these larger ones are for the taillights. And the wheels are pretty good. Like I said, there's not a whole lot of chrome on a lot of modern vehicles. And the wheels are actually branded Michelin. Let's get a focus on that. I said focus. There we go. Nice tread on them. Certainly as good as you're going to get in any kit nowadays. And here's our taillight lenses. I think you would just have to put a little bit of silver right there and there where the reverse lights are. And this is my biggest quibble with the kit. There's our headlights. Is that the glass is non-tinted. It would have been nice if they had have done the front part clear and the rear part tinted. So I think what I might do is I might experiment with some Tamiya smoke on some clear parts and see if I can lay down a nice enough, smooth enough base that I can tint the rear windows and leave the front. And the other problem is, and we'll get to this as soon as we look at the body, which is coming up. Looking at the body, I see no issues. It certainly looks the part of a third generation Caravan, and of course it has what was initially the optional fourth door, and it later became standard. But I don't know if you're spotting what I see as a problem is there's no C-pillars here. Of course, A, B, C-pillars. There's no C-pillars molded in, which in terms of structure isn't a problem because the glass comes together at that point. But visually, when you look at it, you're going to see that there's no C-pillar in there. So at the very least, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be masking and painting a black line right here. Well, it won't be a black line, it'll be a segment that's black right there. Whether I tint the windows or not I'm going to be putting that in on both sides. Because, of course, the window has blackout areas that hide where the structural pillars are. So I think that's a major thing that I will be doing. Otherwise, I can't see me doing massive amounts of scratch building with this. I am toying with the idea of perhaps in the second row of putting a toddler seat in there. Basically, the second generation, not like you're not the infant carrier, but rather the one you move your kid up to when they're about a year old. I think that would be a nice touch. I don't know what other grocery getter things I might put in, but certainly am planning on doing it slightly more than just stock out of the box. I could, I suppose, have the doors open and put a helicopter jet engine in the back. Nah. Look on YouTube, you can find it, jet-powered Caravan. And it was actually this generation of Caravan. Basically, somebody put a helicopter engine in here, a jet turbine helicopter engine, and they put a differential down here, and it sent its power from here into a transmission that went down there into the rear wheels. So that's kind of cool, but I don't think I'm going to go there, as interesting as that might be. Let's keep it stock and significant. So one of the first things that I want to achieve in our Caravan build here is I want to tint the windows. Basically all the rear windows. The windshield, I want that just left, well, basically clear. So what I plan on doing is I plan on spraying it using some Tamiya smoke here. And I've heard of it being done. I've never done it myself. So instead of going directly onto our irreplaceable kit part, I'm going to try it on something else. Now, those of you who've never been involved with model railroading may not recognize this, but this is, and I'm not even sure if they still come in these, I think they still do, but this is the box that a box car, hopper car, any piece of N-scale rolling stock used to come in, and they probably still do. And basically, they come in these little clear plastic boxes. Usually there's a little tray inside to hold it. Well, I've got tons of these things. And they're perfectly transparent, just like plastic. Or just like, the plastic for windows. So we're going to mask off half of this, and then I'm going to spray it using Tamiya smoke, and we're going to see if it's done a good job of tinting it. So I've never actually airbrushed Tamiya clear before, and as you can see, I've mixed up a little bit of the Tamiya smoke in my airbrush here, and we're going to be applying it to this old clear box that N-scale freight cars usually come in. In case you're wondering where we are in the space-time continuum, we have a set of stairs sitting in the spray booth. I'll move it out of the way. That gives you some idea of some of the overlap that I do have in projects. If I try to do some of the preliminary work for a project while I'm doing other ones. So how did it turn out? Well, you can see that we have a half-tinted box. Now it's a little heavy. Hard to do this while I'm holding the camera. It's a little heavy down here on this bottom edge, and basically that's, I should have waited a little bit more time between coats, but otherwise it really did a pretty good job. Now, there's a couple spots where it's a little lighter, so I'm going to have to make really, really certain that I've cleaned the part and gotten all sorts of grease and things off of it. But you can certainly tell it's been tinted, and I don't think the model will look right without tinted glass. So here's our transparency that's ready for painting, and as you can see, I've masked both the outside and the inside of the windshield. And initially I wasn't going to mask the inside of the side windows And then I thought, you know what, while I'm getting this side done, I might end up applying too much to the back side of the other side of the car. At least by putting tape on the inside as well, I'm only applying it on the outside of each part of the windows. So this is now ready to go. Let's see how this can go wrong. So I've got my tinting done. I still would like to polish up the windows a little bit because they look a little foggy. And I suspect that my plastic polish is not all that it should be, so I'm going to be getting another product and see if I can achieve a little bit more shine on it. I'm reluctant to spray a gloss clear finish on it because then you just end up adding more and more layers that you're trying to see through, but we definitely have tinted windows, and you can see where I've painted the black in the C-pillar here. I decided that instead of brush painting the underside neutral gray, I was just going to hit it with a coat of the same primer I'm going to be using on the body. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to pick out all the various details and things later. I'm going to see if I like this better than, to be doing it with a brush, probably a little bit faster. Of course, red is such a terrible color to cover over. After the primer had dried fully, which for an automotive primer really doesn't take very long at all, I then went at the underside with various other detailing paints. I used steel for the exhaust, and the fuel tank was semi-gloss black, as were the suspension components. The oil pan I made gloss black. I used silver for the transmission pan and the transmission housing here at the front. The wheel wells ended up being German gray because that's usually kind of a flat rubbery type of a plastic. If you look here, the space between the leaf spring, that's right, leaf spring, which I did in semi-gloss black, and the wheel well, I just did that in flat black. It's not an ideal solution, and I was toying with the idea of making resin or rubber molds of all the suspension parts and casting them in resin and then grinding everything smooth and everything like that. And I just don't feel it was worth it. Really, the detail on the underside of this is really, really good. The only area where it's kind of let down is where you look right here and you can see that this should be a hole, and it's not. It's just kind of gray. But unless you're flipping them over, and how often do we flip over our models, it's not too bad. Once I had all these details picked out, I put a little bit of rust on the brackets that hold the fuel tank in place, a little bit of rust on the exhaust, and keep in mind, a newer vehicle, or I should basically say not really newer, any vehicle made after the mid-80s should not have a seriously rusty exhaust until it's maybe 11, 12 years old. No, I know somebody's going to jump in the comments and said, I had a 1991 and 2 years after I bought it, the exhaust rusted out. But in general, the exhausts after about the mid-80s, when most automakers switched to stainless steel, they tended to last till at least 10 years, even in northern salty climes like Ontario. They tended to last a whole lot longer than they used to. So you don't want to overdo the exhaust on a newer vehicle. I know, newer, anything less than 30 years old, I guess. So that is the underframe, and I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. I could have really gone nuts and made the whole chassis rusty and that sort of thing, but like I said, I got two rusty, newer Caravans I've got to fix, so I really don't feel like inflicting it on a plastic one. I didn't think there was any point in doing a blow-by-blow of the interior, because I haven't done too much to it. I do plan on adding a few more details, but this is basically the stock setup done. And if I flip it over, you can see that the seats just basically clip in place here. And I've been trying to use a few more craft acrylics than I have in the past, mainly because everybody else seems to get good results with them, so I thought I'd try them. So I used 3 different colors. I've got Teal Sea, and that was actually for the carpeting. And I've got Tide Pool, and this is where are we here? This is a satin finish. And the idea with this one was I was going to do anything it was supposed to be like hard plastic. And then I've also got, here we are, Pool Blue, which was for the seats. Now, as it turned out, both of the lighter colors were way too light. The color for the seats was too light, and the color for the plastic molding was too light as well. So what I did is I ended up putting a fair amount of the Teal Sea into both of the lighter colors, and I was hoping that it wouldn't take away from the sheen that one of the parts that I wanted to be plastic. And although it feels really flat, there is a bit of a sheen to those parts still, whereas the seats remained dead flat, which is what I wanted. And then after the seats were dry, what I ended up doing is I made up a very, very thin solution of the Teal Sea, which once again is the darker blue here, and some windshield washer fluid, and I just floated into the creases of the seats just to give them a little more depth. And they are really quite nice moldings. If I flip it around here, you can see there's the dashboard. And the dashboard is a different blue. It is, I believe, Tamiya medium blue, XF18. And I wanted this one because even the Tamiya flat paints have a fair amount of sheen to them, you can see. And oftentimes the dashboard moldings are a darker color than the rest of the interior of the car. So that's why I went with that. And pretty much all of the buttons and switches and things are either flat black, or I shouldn't say flat black, semi-gloss black, or German gray, because there's very, very little chrome to be found inside of these vehicles. So that's the interior. There's still going to be a few details added. I haven't determined all exactly what they are yet. Oh, and as well as that, the speakers, the defrosters, and the speakers on the sides here, they were given some Tamiya panel wash just to bring out the depth of the grills. Before removing the wheels from the sprue, I gave them a shot of Tamiya. I seem to be overloading the brightness contrast of my camera here. I gave the wheels a shot of Tamiya flat clear. You could use Tester's dull coat as well. And the idea is it basically converts it from looking like chrome to looking like alloy. And even the Caravans that did not have alloy wheels had plastic hubcaps that kind of had a flat metallic finish to it. So this basically replicates that well. And the backside has been given just a quick coat of Tamiya Dark Iron, which is a nice color because it's kind of a muddy metallic color, which I find works good for a lot of things. And that's the wheels on. I know they just go on with metal axles. It's amazing how much these bright wheels overwhelm the camera when they hit the light just right. So anywho, I think I've done enough on this for this week. And this project probably only has one more episode for it to finish off. So, as I probably said earlier, it's going to be a quick build. So, thanks for watching, and until next time, just keep on modeling. My weight update will follow.